Welcome back to Heartland Mamas. I'm Marie Briel.
And I'm Heidi Henry coming to you from two socially distant studios at the edge of the Great Red Divide, where every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. we bring you progressive news and views that you can use. You can find all of our previous episodes at heartlandmamas.com, on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and proudly part of the Demcast USA network. Murray, today we're going to talk about our Supreme Court. And part of my rabbit hole is, God, why do we have lifetime appointments? Why is there only 9 of them? Why can we allow so many to be appointed under one president? There should be limits. There should be better vetting. What happened to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that Brett Kavanaugh was in debt? Why, how did that get paid off? Who gives Amy Coney Barrett a book deal when she hasn't done a damn thing yet? And why was Anton Scalia dead in a donor's home?
Heidi, you're spot on. The court is supposed to be the final check, right? We hear about checks and balances, and the court is supposed to be impartial. The court is supposed to use past law as justifications for why they are ruling the way they are. The court is supposed to be above reproach. That's why they're not elected. That's why they're appointed. That's why they're appointed for lifetime terms so that the whim of the court can't be changed. But as you mentioned, all those things are slightly problematic, and even more so problematic when you consider the cases that have been heard and are being heard and what the shadow docket can actually do for us.
Right.
Right now, Heidi and I we do a lot of shows on the SCOTUS because we understand how crucial it is to all of our rights. And we've seen a few of the rulings recently, and they've got a really big docket coming up here. And one of the most glaringly painful, I believe, for women right now is Mississippi, the state of Mississippi. So, Heidi, you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Well, once again, Murray, the control of women is coming up before the Supreme Court. In Mississippi, they have one abortion provider. And the problem with only one abortion provider is that means that there's holes in women's health care all over the state of Mississippi, which has a very high maternal death rate, a very high infant mortality rate, highest in the nation. And you can bring this back and say, yeah, but what does it have to do with abortion? Whenever you have mortality rates in that level, in a country that's supposed to be a first world country, when it's having developing world crises, you have to look at it and think, what's going on down there? Well, it's the repression of the reproductive rights of women. And abortion is really only one small part of it. Because when women have control over their bodies, they also have control over their finances. They have control over their relationships. They have control over their parenting skills. They have control over their careers. And in a place like Mississippi, which is largely a welfare state, um, and also has the highest rate of coronavirus still, just adding that in there because Mississippi can't be any more backward. Um, the problem when you add in this abortion bill, which is now going to the Supreme Court, is it further hampers progress. It further controls women. It causes more death of women and infants. It doesn't do anything to help. All it does is go to feed the narrative of the conservative Republican. And in this bill that's going before the Supreme Court, Mississippi last year passed a bill saying that there's no abortions after 15 weeks. And most abortions are performed at 6 weeks or less, which is when a woman really first realizes that she's pregnant and it's an unplanned or unwanted pregnancy. And I want to state here that how you prevent unwanted and unplanned pregnancies is by providing health care for women so that they can have access to family planning advice, reproductive care, and birth control if she wants it. Okay, that's how you prevent abortions, because abortions are just unwanted and unplanned pregnancies. But the troubling part about the 15-week ban is it's between 15 and 22 weeks that women start experiencing things like gestational diabetes to the point where it could be deadly, where you find that you could have a fetus that has got a
Severe
life.
abnormalities.
Right, a severe abnormality. Oftentimes, it could be a fetus that is dead already. You could have, and as a person who's had, fertility issues myself, I mean, my children are grown now, but boy, back when we were trying to have kids, Marie, it was really hard. And my body would spontaneously abort, meaning I would have miscarriages. So that's just what happens. But the problem after 15 weeks, say you've got preeclampsia and you're getting ready to stroke out if you don't stop being pregnant, and you're 15 and a half or 16 weeks pregnant. Now in Mississippi, there's no place to get that taken care of. And if you live in one part of Mississippi, we live in Illinois, which is a good sized state, but it's not huge like Mississippi is. If you live in one part of the state, there's one provider to do that service for you, one provider. You may have to drive 8-10 hours to get to that provider to save your very life. Now, there's no man that has to do that. It's only a woman that has to do that. It's only a woman in Mississippi that has to put her own life on the line to survive, because the law there says that she has no rights. It takes away her autonomy and her decision making.
And
And puts
again, that is not, should not be the decision of 9 people, of 9 justices. In every time the court makes a ruling, it increases or decreases the strength of a law. And in Roe v. Wade, we have seen countless attempts, countless upholdings to take away those protection from women. A shadow docket case involving this very issue was women's reproductive health, and I believe it was Alabama that refused to allow a woman's spouse, partner, someone else pick up the morning after pill, the abortion pill.
Missouri.
Missouri. Okay, so it might have been Missouri.
Another backward state. I mean, there's so many of them.
I know. And so during the pandemic, in the middle of the contagion, the courts were petitioned to one particular justice to say that by allowing someone else to pick up the morning after pill was illegal because it was a pandemic. And surprisingly enough, that legal argument got put forth to all the justices, and the justices 5-4 decided that they were correct. If you need to have the morning after pill, you have to get in the car and drive to a pharmacy and pick it up yourself,
But it's not
or
just
you
that
won't
simple,
be
Marie.
able to have it.
You have to take time off work if you're working during the pandemic. If you're a frontline worker, essential worker, okay, so you're working at the grocery store, but now you got to take time off. And to take the morning after pill, you have hours, not days, not weeks, not months, to decide. So you got to take time off work. So somebody's got to cover your shift. And if you've got children who are doing remote learning because there's no school, you have to somehow pack them in the car, take them out in a pandemic. God help you if your little 3-year-old who's just potty training has to go potty while you're at the giant CVS grocery store with all the other people in the pandemic and their public bathroom is closed. I mean, Marie, it's just women took the brunt of this pandemic across the world. Let's add one more thing she's got to do right now. One more thing. And I realize that they're stay-at-home dads too. I'm not ruling that out. But we know that 90% of the time it's mom. It's a woman that has to do all this extra shit. Let's give her one more thing to do, shall we? One more thing to do.
And you're right, Heidi. And
Ugh.
but also the point goes to that ruling, like you just said, infringes upon a woman's right to have reliable health care, reliable women's health care. And just what you
Right.
said, they allow for the burden to be placed enormously on the woman without protecting her rights. And how this happened
Right.
was because of the shadow docket. And each time these cases, so let's do a real quick overview.
Talk about the shadow docket. What is that,
Okay,
Marie?
so course cases get heard before the Supreme Court in one of four ways. One is it's gone through the appellate court system. Two is if it's a state versus state situation, because then the court has to have a highest deciding factor.
Hmm.
Three, if a court finds it to be of federal interest and they can remove it from a federal court or a state court. And four, if a justice is approached by a plaintiff, the justice then can take that approach to his peers or her peers, and the nine of them. And they will then decide on the case's merit because the justice requests it. And this is to be used in like extreme circumstances, such as stay of executions, right? Because literally, if you don't act in a certain time that doesn't have time to go through the normal courts, people will die, right? So
Right.
this idea, it's always been a part in existence. For 16 years through the Bush through Obama administrations, it was only used 10 times, which comes in to be about every other term. It was attempted to be used 43 times in the 4 years of our previous administration. And let's talk a little bit more about why. Okay, so, let's say Big Bear Chemical Company says, this is wrong. We don't deserve this. We're not doing anything wrong, and shoves it up the chain of command.
Right.
Well, then Big Bear Chemical Company can take it to one justice who they have either helped in getting elected or are a large friend. And that justice can bring it, and then it goes before them. And with those rulings, it's only a yay or a nay. They never have to actually put an opinion behind the ruling. And yet, lower courts are still required to follow the Supreme Court's ruling. And there's a phrase called the opinion won't write. Okay, that's when a justice knows what they want to do, but they cannot find the legislative or historical references needed to back their opinion up. And this is where shadow dockets come in real handy because there is no requirement for issuing an opinion. So here we have this whole separate way that the states, private companies, plaintiffs of any sort can work around the federal Supreme Court system. And it goes farther than that because these don't get much attention. Even the reporters who are tasked with covering the federal court systems don't know about these shadow docket cases until the rulings come down. And most often
Oh
it's
my
just like the
gosh.
White House Friday nights, right? Friday nights, late at night, these sorts of things
Yeah.
get dropped.
Yeah.
And we have to understand the significance. The reason that Trump's border wall got paid for instead of going to protection for the nation was because of a shadow docket.
That's when they took money out of the U.S. military to pay for it.
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
So
to pay.
it didn't have to be legislated. It just was, here's some cash. I want you guys to rubber stamp it. And that was exactly what it was. And the fact that there were so many shadow dockets that were used.
Look at
Uh,
voting rights. Voting
God,
rights.
Marie.
Wisconsin was a shadow docket case. And not to mention, that all of these rights are so tenuous. But for a justice to not to have to justify why they're making the decisions that they're doing it degrades the institution of what little equality It had. It was sort of our last bastion. And now remember, so the a law can be created.
We we are going to have a show about shadow dockets and executive orders, and when things are done that are not done under the reasonable, usual way that we pass laws and do legislation and make rulings in the United States. So we do have an upcoming episode on that. I'm sure Murray will come up with a catchy title for that one too. But
But the
the
implications are exactly what you had said, Heidi, is that, if laws get made that are unfair, we are supposed to have a system that allows us to appeal that. We can say this isn't right, and justices have to listen, and we can present arguments, or our attorneys can. And there's a system, but when the Supreme Court drops in and takes that right away from you,
yeah,
when the Supreme Court makes decisions
right.
based on no deliberation, no oral arguments. These happen within 3 days. We
Right.
see what's happened. So any executive order that Joe Biden decides to do, the same thing can happen to you. And remember, it's a 6-3 court.
It is a 6-3 court, Murray, and that's why there's other things that we need to talk about that we will do in an upcoming episode about, the things that need to be done. Should the court be expanded? Should we have more justices? Yeah, based on our population, nine's really not enough. You shouldn't allow, 300 million lives to be decided by nine. And that's where we're at right now. And what is the magic number? Is it 11? Is it 13? It's always got to be an odd number, remember, because there's no tiebreaker. So you have to, and nobody can say, I'm not going to rule on this one. You have to take a side when you're a Supreme Court judge. So we have to expand the court because it's really only 9 people and it really needs to be more. We've expanded Congress in the past. We've expanded a lot of things in the past to explain our the volume of people that live here, our population. So it's time for us to really take a hard look at that as well. The other things that are all part of this is
Financial disclosures of justices.
Disclosure. Oh my
If we
Lord.
look at conflicts of interest and financial
Yep.
disclosures of justices,
Yep.
I mean, even my hero, Sotomayor, Justice Sotomayor, did not declare that she received a private hotel wing for her and her family and her security to speak at a commencement. That's small potatoes, but it is still something she probably should have done. But it goes way bigger than that as well. Book deals don't have to be considered as a part of your additional income. They can receive up to $30,000 to speak for speaking engagements, outside things associated to being a justice, but book deals aren't a part of that. And so there's a lot of ways that not that justices would, but that justices could enrich themselves in a
No,
direction that doesn't favor the average person,
the
for
justices.
those who favor exclusivity.
Okay, so and we're not going to go into. There's no proof about where Anton Scalia died. You know, uh, the fact that he was in somebody's private home that was a huge donor to the Republican Party and a gun rights guy. I don't
And
know.
justices are supposed to remain above the fray. They were
Yeah.
supposed to, the original intent was to not be political, to not take an opinion, to not endorse or be seen
Murray,
giving to campaigns.
ultimate political appointment. It's a lifetime appointment
Yep.
without any further vetting. So you could be on the Supreme Court
You could
and
have a
go out.
wife like Justice Roberts, who is actively working to overthrow the federal government in an insurrection and still be a
Right.
federal judge
And still be a federal. You can, Brett Kavanaugh, have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt disappear that was
magically.
that was racked up through dubious gambling and shady deals. Just all of a sudden disappear, and not have to answer for it. if you do something like that, you should have to answer for it. It should never be a lifetime appointment, and you should never be above the law.
Well,
You
and
should
Heidi, I,
be
I'm, oh,
better than that.
I agree with you 100%, and I'm so disturbed by the conservative justices. And one of the rulings that came down most recently was the case of deciding that justices must have the belief that a child or a minor is incorrigible, that there is no hope that they would ever be reformed. Because the past Supreme Court has required the only way for a judge to give a life sentence to someone under the age of 18 without possibility parole was rare, and it had to be exceedingly proved that the judge thought that it was beyond reproach. Well, a case just came before the courts, Jones, and it's the case is it came before the courts where he had killed his father, his grandfather, this young man, and he killed him brutally. But he was 15 and he got life without the possibility of parole. What they did not take into account was the fact that he was abused, that he had mental health issues that were undiagnosed, the fact that he had living with a mentally challenged adult and he had snapped. So this guy is living in prison, and the Supreme Court just heard his appeal. And the appeal says that a justice does not need to have a belief of irredeemability to sentence minors, those under the legal age, to life without the possibility of parole. So now any justice anywhere can decide, oh, here's a 16-year-old kid who set his house on fire. You're never getting out. Doesn't that help the prison industrial complex just a little bit? These are the types of
Right.
decisions that the court is making that we need to be aware of.
There are so many things that are like that. And I just want to touch back on this case from Mississippi just a little bit and let people know that 15 weeks is not a viable fetus. You're just past the point of being just a bunch of electrical current. And or abortion isn't birth control, right? But the reason that some people might be in this position is situations that you or nor I have ever walked in, Murray, and most people haven't. And we get into this whole judgy religious bent.
It's nobody's damn business.
Well, and I agree with you. And you know that I'm a very devout Christian.
I know.
I
But
would
it is
never
no one's business what you do.
I would never inflict my beliefs on anyone else. I would never visit them on anyone else unless they asked me about it. And I think that that's a scary point when I look at Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh, is that they are willing to visit their religious beliefs on other people. Not only visit
Absolutely.
them, but impose them on other people. And I think that that's a huge overstep by anyone, and much more by a Supreme
Well, look
Court.
at the case. Look at the shadow docket case that denied an Islamic man
Oh my God.
during the Trump administration. An Islamic man was sentenced to death, and he wanted to have a spiritual advisor there at his death. And, they allow Christians to have ministers, priests. They denied him the ability. The Supreme Court shadow docketed a case that took a man who was going to die's chance to have a spiritual advisor away because he wasn't the right religion. He wasn't the right
They probably
color.
probably would have
Think
given him
about that.
Murray, that almost brought me to tears when you told me about that, because I wasn't aware of that. I can't imagine at the most personal time of your life, the most personal time when you are the most alone, because you can't do that with anyone else. You are going to die by yourself. That's it. There's nobody who can walk that walk with you. And to not have a spiritual advisor there, Were they going to offer him a rabbi instead? Were they going to offer him a Baptist minister? And was Franklin Graham going to check out from the pool boy and come and sit with them? I don't know. I can't imagine taking someone's the last thing they're ever going to do away from them. I, it
And they did.
kind of
And the
hurt.
conservative justices
Took it
ruled.
away because they
Took it
didn't
away.
understand.
And that is why we have to be vigilant. That is why we need to contact our legislators. That is why we need to contact the White House. Find an organization that works toward court reform. We need to stay on top of this and we need to stay aware of it because there are so many times that we don't know what's really going on. Even the folks who are designed, whose job it is to cover them 24/7, don't know what's really going on. And we
You
need to
can't.
make sure we have a fair and equitable court. And as we can see, it's not that way. And we have major legislation challenges coming up before the court this fall. There is dark money,
Oh,
California.
yeah.
There is gun rights, New York versus concealed carry. There are major issues
Well,
that will affect
and,
each of us.
and let's clarify the thing in New York could allow unpermitted concealed carry across the nation
Yeah.
for anyone, no background checks. That's how
And
crucial
that
that.
supersedes states' laws. But boy, when it comes to voting rights, you would think something different because the conservative justices tend to vote against states' rights. Like the state of Wisconsin wanted to postpone their election and they were told no. The
Because
state
of
of New
the
York,
pandemic.
no, Wisconsin during the primary of
Right,
2020, during the
right,
pandemic.
right.
States like New York do not want you to be able to concealed carry anywhere in their state,
Nope.
but the justices are like, no, you can. This is why it's very, very important, folks. We will keep covering the SCOTUS as we do. We'll probably amp up our coverage to be a little bit more regular, but we need to all take action on this.
It's a very weird world we live in because so many of the things coming before the Supreme Court this fall or this summer or this fall, no, the stuff that we heard about is the stuff that's coming up this fall, and then we'll learn about it about a year from now, what they decided. But these are all ultra conservative cases that is right in the wheelhouse for these six justices that are ultra conservative, that were installed by ultra conservative presidents, lifetime appointments, some of them under very dubious situations. Amy Coney Barrett,
Some with
Brett
lots of
Kavanaugh.
dark money encouraging their
Yes. I mean, the
confirmations.
Federalist Society was all over this. And I just, I'm
You
worried,
mean like
Marie.
Justice Roberts' wife who works for the Federalist Society? Oh, wait.
Yeah, yeah. Their end game is to have the feudalist
So
population.
even though we have a Democratic president, Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate right now, all that hangs in the balance.
It's
And
hanged
more
by a thread.
importantly, whoever is making our decisions, who's legislating our laws, is not as important as who's adjudicating them. Our justices at every level is so important, and the whole system needs a revamp.
It really does. I I can't stress to you enough, ladies and gentlemen, the calls that you need to make to your senator. Here in Illinois, we have two senators that we know are going to do the right thing. Call your state your congressman, and I know I could call Adam Kinzinger all I want. It would be like screaming into a void, a wind tunnel, a vortex of nothingness because
True.
that's how low he is. Yeah. So,
We were right on
you
that, by the way. Our call on eliminating Adams' district is
yeah,
probably what's going to happen. We
I knew
called
it.
that.
You
I know.
called it.
That's why he's running for Senate. We knew it. We called it. Yep.
Anyway, so
You think there was a
here's what
conversation going, hey, do you think Tammy, you can hold your seat because we're going to probably eliminate his district and he'll be coming after you. Do you think that was a conversation that happened at some point?
I have to tell you, Tammy Duckworth is everywhere right now. She is
Yes, she
everywhere. She
is.
just
She
released a book.
already knows it's coming. That's why.
Yeah,
She's raised her
and
profile. She's, yep.
I will read her book. I have it. I've got like 4 books in front of you, Tammy, but I'm going to read it. So, and I use my phone as my e-reader. So, and she's in there somewhere. I bought it already. It's in the hopper. But it's really important that Tammy wins re-election. Amazing. I had the opportunity to meet her a couple of times, not only when I was running for office, but other Democratic events, where she was hanging out. Just a charming, intelligent, thoughtful, deep thinker. She is hell of a funny. I mean, she is hilarious. She's got a real dark, twisted kind of sense of humor. It's kind of fun, you know. But she's just amazing, and we need to make sure she gets reelected. So if you're ready to go knock doors after the pandemic,
After you're
we need
vaccinated.
yeah, fully vaxxed here, ready to knock for Tammy. So
Me too.
Tammy and JB. So listen, everybody, it's great for you to listen in. This is a very deep subject.
Topic.
I
We'll be
am,
doing an unroll on our Heartland Mamas Unrolled, which is
yeah,
our independent radio show that airs weekly. And we will be doing multiple more segments, more episodes on SCOTUS and the importance of expanding it, the shadow court, etc. But we really wanted to make sure that you caught what's going on and keep your eyes open because we'll be seeing things come out over the next few weeks. But you can always find out what's coming out of our mouths on Tuesdays and Thursdays on Facebook Live. 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. But if you're working or birthing cats, whatever the case may be, you are then capable of watching us anywhere, anytime you get your favorite podcasts as a part of Demcast USA. Or if you want to see the funny faces that I make, YouTube. So be sure to like, subscribe, and share. We appreciate all you do. And thanks again, guys. Heartland Mamas.
mamas.com. We'll see you later. See you Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye.